Alright, next up is the CPU. Okay, this is the main processing chip. This is the one that does all the tasks. So anytime you open up a file, anytime you do anything, all that information gets processed by this. So this is like the brain of the actual computer system right here. So this one is made by AMD, but there's another company called Intel. They also make CPU chips. When you get a motherboard, you have to determine whether or not you want an AMD CPU or Intel CPU, because each motherboard is designed around this main processing chip right here. Okay, so this is the one that the client picked out. It's an AMD Athlon X2 processor. So it's a dual core. That means it has two brains on one chip, you know, so it can do multiple tasks at one time. So this is a pretty decent chip right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and install it. All right, I'm gonna open it up and I'm gonna show y'all when I install it. Okay. All right, so I'm taking it out. Okay, this is the instruction manual. We won't be using that. All right. This here's the chip. That's the actual chip itself. Okay, so it's in protective plastic casing. All right. This here is the cooling fan, and this fan keeps the CPU cool, because these CPUs can reach over 150 degrees Celsius, very hot. So this fan right here keeps it very, very cool. It also has something called a heat sink on it. Okay, and basically what the heat sink does, it draws the heat away from the chip, and the fan cools it. Okay, so let me go ahead and show that to y'all right now. All right, so this is the fan. Okay, and this is the heat sink. All right, so this pulls, the chip goes here, it sits on top of the chip, it pulls the heat up towards the fan, and the fan blows it and cools it off. All right, okay, so this is this, and here's the chip. Okay, for your eyes to see. Alright, that's the chip right there. Right, the brain. You know, it has two other brains on top of it, so it's good for multitasking, alright? Alright, so the next shot you're gonna see is when everything is installed, okay? Okay, so this is the motherboard here with the RAM installed, with the CPU installed, and the heat sink and the fan installed on top of that. Alright, so now I'm gonna place this into the motherboard, okay? Okay, now this motherboard is going into the case, alright? So I gotta line up these standoff pieces I have here. Okay, gotta line them up. Okay, so as you can see, I put the motherboard in. Okay, it's sitting top these standoffs here to keep it from touching the actual case itself, because if it does, it can ground out. So what I'm going to do now is install these screws that have it securely fastened onto the standoffs. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so we're just showing you the different interfaces. Older computers, they use this old cable right here, this ribbon cable, which is much wider and takes up much room in the case. And the good thing about building computers is that you want to make sure you have the best airflow as possible to keep everything cool. So now when you purchase new hard drives or new optical drive, like I showed you in part 1, you want to get the ones that have this SATA cable, which is much thinner and then provides better airflow. Alright, so this right here is the end of part 2. I just finished putting all the components into place in the case. I put all the power cables into place, all the connected cables into place, and this is the final product. Alright, so it's the power supply. Everything's being fed power. The optical drive, the hard drive, the motherboard, the CPU is getting power. These are all the front cables for all the front connections. We have a fan here. We have a fan on the case door as well. Right here. So this is connected. So everything's connected. And I also, if you look down at the case, I applied some wire management. So I had some zip ties. So I'll put some zip ties to keep everything out the way so there's enough airflow to go in and out the case. Alright, so here's a moment of truth. And right now I'm going to power it on to make sure it actually works, okay? Alright. And here's something real fly.
Oh, nothing like that. Nothing like that. Turn it on.
Alright, so that's the way it was. Everything powers up. It's working. So that means I have all the pieces and all the connections and everything into place. Alright, the runtime for me to put everything together is about approximately 1 hour. So I did it fairly quickly. But just note that I installed the operating system yet. So Windows is not on it yet. As well as other programs I normally install with builds, is not on it yet. But we're just checking to make sure that the hardware powers up and that it works. Now here's something really cool. This case here has LED fans, right? With these LED fans, it glows. So what I'm going to do is turn the lights out so you can take a look at it just to see how cool it looks.
Turn the lights out. Where did it go?
And there you have it, folks. So this is part 2 of the build. Part 3 is when I install all the software. And part 4, the final part, is when I actually connect it to the HDTV. Alright? So once again, this is BX Bomber. If you want a case of soap like this, you have all the contact info along with this DVD that we're making. Okay? So we're out for today. Alright, so I'm just showing you the comparison between an old compact and the new PC build that I did for the client. So this is a little outtake or extra, alright? So as you can look here, this is your run-of-the-mill compact desktop PC that you can purchase from HP or that you can purchase from Best Buy or a store like that. These are the basic parts in here. Most of these parts in here is like real low quality. The motherboard, the fans, everything is very low quality. So you really don't get much for your money. They charge you, you know, according to all this second tier parts that they get, you know. And if you look at it, really not much to look at. You know what I'm saying? But, you know, this is just what this is. But if you take a look at the new build that I got here, that I designed, that I put together, you see the cabling is much neater. Okay, you see you have a lot of high quality components, and I charge you the same or even less that you can get for this compact, and you'll have a nice computer like this that glows blue, that has the fans, nice cable wiring and everything. Alright, so this has been an outtake from BX Bomber. This is the same client build. Out with the old, in with the new hotness.